he starts the recording right when we start the meeting.
Okay.
Hey,
I'm gonna go this on mute.
We don't need monitoring on YouTube.
Me to co-host, so I co-host. Yeah,
Protect you from yourself.
probably. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're copacetic now. I discovered a neat thing. I like to control things up in the upper and I control the
That should be actually. I would
I know.
turn that control over to you.
Hi, Vicki. Okay, Ian, go ahead and start the recording. And I will record it on my end just in case anything
This
goes
meeting
wrong.
is being recorded.
Scotty, we're hoping a few more people will show up, but we've got the important people here now. We always start with our land acknowledgement, and I am going to share my screen. We acknowledge the people whose land we live in, the Atfalidi Kalapuyans, also known as the Tualatin Band of Kalapuyans, the first inhabitants of Washington County. We are grateful for the land we are on, Kalapuyan land. Signers of the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 were removed from their homelands to the Grand Indian Reservation. Today, their descendants are tribal members of Grand Ronde and Celeste tribe, carrying on the traditions and cultures of their ancestors. We acknowledge and express gratitude for the ancestors of this place and recognize that we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their continuation in our community. I'd like to invite all of us to reflect on the role government has played in the painful colonial history and reflect as well on the resilience and healing of the Indigenous land and communities. We invite everyone to collaborate and work together with the tribe to take care of the land and water and people who inhabit these spaces. Yeah.
Two days from now, we're going to go to jazz music at Cedar Park, which is right in your guys' backyard. So anybody that can attend, that would be great. Please bring your family and friends to enjoy a night of music and kids activities. Concert goers are welcome to bring a picnic supper to enjoy, as well as lawn chairs or blankets for seating. We're also excited to announce that outdoor pools are opening. Raleigh Swim Center opened up on June 27th. And as soon as we are able to fix a circulation pump at Somerset West, that will be open as well. So that should be open here in the next week or so.
That's a cool pool.
Yeah. And then lastly, the only other thing I have, which is not in the area, but I did want to bring it up, Big Truck Day is back at Conestoga Rec Center. Please mark your calendars for Saturday, August 6th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the Conestoga parking lot will be full of big rigs and more. So
Great.
It's a very brief update today, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
I heard something about a new dog park that's being planned for Ridgewood, and I wasn't able to get that information in time for the July issue, but I'm going to look into that.
I will look into it on my end. If I get anything, I'll shoot it your way.
Great. And on that note, the Cedar Mills Cider Festival will be on Sunday, September 18th, which is sponsored by THPRD, but I get to organize it and bring together fresh apple cider and history and fun and music and food and all kinds of good stuff down at the JQA Young House.
Great. That's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Andrew, are you ready to go?
Sure, I can be ready to go. I just have a few brief announcements for Tualatin Valley Water. One is we are still seeking some volunteers for the rate advisory committee. We have a good number, but we don't have any customers from north of Highway 26 yet, which is really unusual. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, there's still an opportunity to get involved, and this will be looking at our customer assistance programs and our rate structure. Next Wednesday night, our board is going to look at the rate increase for November 1st. And we are anticipating that they're going to reopen that rate setting process that's normally every 2 years. But because of inflation, they don't want to wait and risk having to raise it even higher in the future. So we're looking for that, and there should be a decision on that. We're anticipating it being about 14.25%. We also have a board opening that we're recruiting for. We have a board member who stepped down, who's moving out of the area. And so there's information on our website about that. And then we did get a new billing system over the 4th of July weekend. Thank you, Virginia, for contacting us. We've made some revisions to that email that looked really like spam.
I was sure it was.
I totally.
Goodness,
yeah.
Virginia to the rescue again. How wonderful is that?
Yep, CPO1, you guys are super involved. We really appreciate
Spam
it.
antennas are always out.
They
Yeah,
are.
good job. But we did have a successful implementation in the new portal. Our payment processing hasn't changed, but it was sort of at the front of the line. And now our billing system is in front. So when you log into the billing system, you'll have access to your payment system. All your automatic payments will continue to process. It will look a little different, and there is some help available. We've had about 4,000 customers enroll on their own, but we do have some who have trouble locating their account number. You need your account number and your site address, and you have to choose the site address from a pull down. So that's a little confusing, especially if internet is moving slow. It can take a couple minutes to fill in, and then people keep typing and then they can't quite grasp. So we're working on some fixes for these things. In the meantime, we're trying to put out about once a week on Nextdoor tips to help people navigate through it. It is bilingual. There's a lot of features and improvements in there, but it's just going to be a little rocky to get everybody on there. So that's pretty much it for us, unless anyone has questions.
Great. I was suggesting that it say billing rather than pay your bill, because I don't pay anything online like that, but I might want to look up my bill.
Yes.
And before we go on, I want to
Yeah.
thank you, Andrea, and on behalf of Tualatin Valley Water District, for the foresight that you've put into making the effort to create this water supply for us. I think it's really marvelous, and you're having to do some heavy lifting. I mean, who in the heck wants to go out and say, hey, 14.5 going up, but
no, and this is
we have to do it. It's
Yeah.
one of the core. I mean, water is like our first food. So
and it's a decade of increases. So we know people are feeling it. And that's why I can't emphasize enough the importance of the rate advisory committee, because we need some input from customers on how to help. A certain percentage of our population is really going to struggle. They're struggling now. So we need some different kinds of programming, and those programs come out of your resources. So you need to have a seat at the table.
well, I think that the new community engagement group is working on doing that kind of thing actively now. So I'm sure that we'll see more of it.
All right, well, I'll put my contact information. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to help you now or anytime. Just call or email me.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Wait, did I hear 14% increase?
Yeah, I think the proposal is going to be 14 and a quarter for November 1st.
Oh,
It
people are
was
gonna.
approved for 9.5, but that's kind of what the financial plan says, the
Yeah.
inflation.
We're-
But by taking it, in November, it means future increases can be leveled out. And that's always what they're aiming for. And I mean, our board's
Well,
been
And the
disciplined
water
about,
bills are usually smaller by then too, because we're not watering the lawn.
I know, so it does give you some time to plan, but
Clever.
gardens and, people,
Yeah.
water is
Okay.
joy. So, okay.
Well, thank you, Andrea.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. We have Sergeant Ed Rawlinson. There we go. You're muted.
That'll,
While I muted myself.
That's
So,
better.
yeah. Anyway,
Welcome.
thank you. I'm Ed Rawlinson. I'm the lieutenant. I have oversight over our activity up in the Bethany area, everything north of Highway 26 for the sheriff's office. Normally, we would have our community outreach folks here to kind of give you an update on some safety things. One of the big things we've been talking about with folks right now is when you go out to the lake, just because it's hot out doesn't mean the water is necessarily safe. It's sometimes shocks the system with the cold. We've had some drownings out at Hag Lake in the past where people weren't prepared, and there's life jackets and things out there. So if people want to go recreate out there, they're welcome to do it. Just be careful. The reason we don't have any community outreach folks here tonight with me is because they moved on to different opportunities, and we're in the process of replacing them. And if you're familiar at all with the sheriff's office, you know that our background checks are not the same as a normal background check at your typical employer. So it takes quite a bit of time. We have a couple sounds like really promising folks in the pipeline, but it just takes months to get through our background stuff. And so both Brenda and Corrine recently moved on to different better opportunities for them as individuals, which you can never fault anybody for doing that, although we hate to lose them. They're really what connects you guys to us more than I can, right? Because they come to all the the different homeowners meetings and the neighborhood
Corrine-
watch and some of that stuff.
Corine-
So
Yeah.
He
it's
was the host of the Washington County Public Affairs Forum too.
Yep.
And she did I attend that, and she did a really good job
Yeah.
in bringing a diversity of things on. She had Professor Marvin Lynn from PSU talk about what critical race theory actually is, and by extension, what's being touted today is not what it is. And it was really fascinating to have a local expert on such a matter. I'll miss her programming.
Yeah, she's a talented lady, really
Somebody
nice
has
too.
a radio on or something.
Yeah, it's probably my police radio. It's as low as I can make it.
Oh,
so
that's okay. You leave that on.
I have to pay a little bit of attention still.
No problem. We're going to
generally-
be talking about the homeless guy on 114th in a little while, so stick around for that. You
Okay.
probably know all about it.
Well, I know a little bit about it, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think we'll talk to you more when we get into that topic. If anybody has questions for the sheriff or the water district or anything, you can see them in the chat. Sunset Pool, I don't think they can get enough staff to open it. So we can try to get another update from Brian, but right now.
Yeah, I was just typing in, we are hoping to get both Sunset and what's our other pool? Harmon, excuse me, in the fall, but it's all dependent upon finding staff. So
Yeah.
we are working super hard to find staff, but it's a nationwide issue, but we are doing the best we can.
Yep, we all are. Thank you. Okay, Lieutenant Ed, we talked to him. Now we've got Station 60 Zoom.
Good evening. My name is Travis Knopf, Lieutenant with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. Captain Spiesel is off today. He had a family matter, so I'm sitting in. I just want to touch briefly on, we've had a drastic increase in call volume, medical related, mental health related issues. 4th of July is always fun. A couple fires, most of them due to improperly discarded fireworks. But hopefully we're wrapping that piece up. We are in our wildland firefighting season. We just ask homeowners to have their homes prepped. There's a new issue of Safety Matters coming out, and on the back page of that has some of that defensible space information. You can also access it at tvfnr.com, and then follow us on the social media platforms. You'll get a lot of information there. I did want to remind everyone, we use an application point. Mainly it's derived around cardiac arrest response with AEDs and just getting people to get over there, beat on the chest, and give these potential survivors a chance. And then we are running a gamut of academies over the next 3 years. They're ranging anywhere from 24 to 26 individuals. So training is extremely busy with that. And again, dealing with the staffing issues. You guys have any questions for us?
I wanted to comment on the seminars. I took the executive training seminar about 10 years ago at TVFNR and learned a lot and had a really good time driving a fire truck and squirting a fire hose and breaking cars apart with the jaws of life and rappelling off of buildings, in addition to sitting in the classroom and learning all about the fire and rescue TVFNR. So I recommend it highly to any viewers that would consider an and you get to spend the night in one of the fire stations and get your own set of turnouts. I think I'm describing the program accurately, I hope.
Yep, and since COVID, we're starting to get some of these programs up and running again. I'm surprised we're not meeting in person for this NAC meeting. It's my first Zoom NAC meeting. But yeah, those programs, we're starting to roll it out. The crews are out busy training during the week. That's why you see a lot of engines and brush rigs moving around, covering some of that training and increasing activities. But you can find that information on tvfr.com, and we'd love to have you.
Actually, if you can stick around as well, we're going to talk briefly about, we've got a homeless guy in a very obvious spot in the middle of our community, and people have said that he's got campfires going, and whether that's legal or not.
Right. So per DEQ in district rules, a campfire is legal if it's a heating fire or a cooking fire or a religious ceremonial fire. So
but
usually
for a campfire in the middle of the street?
Well, in the middle of the street would be weird because that's obviously a safety issue, and law enforcement, correct me if I'm wrong, Lieutenant, might be the best route for that.
Right. Well, we're going to talk all about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, good point, Susan. I noticed that too. If Brian is still here, if he could take a message back that the boardwalk at the JQI Young House needs a little bit of loving care.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. Let's do a gallery view just for the fun of it. Okay, Clay, I'm going to undo your camera for now. Okay, so I have a ton of stuff to get through tonight, unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately. One is, as I mentioned, there's been an enormous discussion on our neighborhood next door group about a poor guy, and we're all sorry for the houseless people, and I'm sure that he's had enough problems for most of us, but he's decided to set up camp at the bottom end of 114th next to the wetland, and on one side is the Timberland Trail, and on the other side of the street is the trail that leads up to Faggy Park. And he absolutely knows his rights. There was some kind of a Supreme Court decision that unless they can offer an alternative place to stay, they can't evict him from a public space, and the end of a street is a public space. if you haven't been by there or you're not aware of where he is, I'm not going to pull up a map right now, but you can go on Google Maps and look at the big Cedar Mill wetland that stretches from Barnes to Cedar Hills Boulevard and see where 114th ends up. And that's where he's hanging out. We have talked to the sheriff's office. We have talked to THPRD. I had an idea that may take off eventually, but it isn't going to solve this problem. And that is that, you know, they're never going to bridge over the wetlands. So we're wondering if the park district couldn't acquire that little bit at the end of the street, and then it would be a continuous trail. And the park district does have regulations about people camping in the park. So, but that's not going to solve the problem right now. And we don't really have a good solution for it. When I spoke to the public information officer for the sheriff's office, they are sending somebody from their HOPE team to see if there are resources that he can take advantage of. If he's doing anything that is not on public land or anything that's going to damage the environment, both the park district and the sheriffs are looking at that. But it's not something that's going to get solved overnight. And I mean, the reactions on Nextdoor are all over the place. Some people, you know, want to take him sandwiches and socks, and some people want to make sure he's gone. And, you know, people have talked extensively to him. Some people have, but a lot of people have concerns about walking their kids through that trail. And I can understand that too. So I just wanted to mention it. I just put a link to an article that we did a couple of months ago about the sheriff and people and houseless people. And Washington County doesn't have a good shelter system. And I was speaking with Marcus, our guy from the outreach community engagement office, that there's a team that's working on it, but they're not ready yet. And we will probably invite that team to an upcoming CPO meeting to learn more, but that's about that. If anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to see if I can find answers for them. And we have another invasive creature called the emerald ash borer. And I'm going to bring up an image. Share my screen. This is an article in OPB. This is an emerald ash borer, and they attack all kinds of ash trees. And Cedar Mill has a bunch of them. It's a very common tree in our riparian areas. So it's one of those things. It's a lot like the Japanese beetle. We want to be vigilant. We want to head it off. The Department of Agriculture is on the case. But they're also asking people to report any sightings. And I'm going to post a page here that, let's see, I'm going to have to wait until I stop screen sharing. Anyway, that's what they look like. I think they're about 1 inch long, maybe smaller than that, but they're pretty. But they eat into the bark of young trees. And, oh, that's not it. Hold on.
At their worst, they would wreak havoc on our riparian areas, which are mostly white ash.
Yeah, Oregon ash.
Oregon ash.
It's a species. And we,
devastating.
by coincidence, we ran a feature about Oregon ash from the tree keepers a couple of months ago in the paper. So you can learn all about the ash trees before they're gone. These guys have, I mean, they've done horrible damage in other places. So if you live anywhere near ash trees, or if you walk our trails or anything, please read the article, and I'll make a link to that OPB article as well, but the ODA website can give you more information as well. So keep an eye out. It's a good story because it was an entomologist that was camping or something, and he just happened to look up and saw them in Forest Grove, and that's the first sighting in Oregon. So maybe we can head them off. I hope so. Ash borers. There is a survey going on right now from Land Use and Transportation, and but it closes on August 9th, and it's about future road funding. It's the MISTIP, which is Major Streets Transportation Improvement Project Fund, for the years 23 to 28. And it's going to ask questions about what your priorities are. And they listen to these things. So CPO1, go out and make your wishes known, and do it before August 9th. And almost last, I'm just curious, raise your hand if you have had COVID. I'm just curious to see how many have, because I'm just pasting another link. I've been getting the state health department COVID emails regularly, and they just have this document that's what can you do to prepare in case you test positive, so that you'll be ready and you won't have to go out and get stuff and expose more people. And I think I'm going to print it out myself, and because we've fortunately evaded it. Marcus just told us that he'd had it, and he said the illness itself wasn't so bad, but then he suffered about 2 weeks of horrible brain fog.
Yeah, the deterioration of your cognitive abilities after really an unfortunate thing to be happening.
And Susan, we do save the chat and we post it on our Facebook page, on the CPO1 Facebook page. So I hope you're a member of that, but we will do that. Yeah, I know some people have just dodged it. I think maybe in 5 or 6 years, we'll find out that maybe some people had a better natural resistance or whatever. But I've spoken to people who have been careful and they've gotten it. So who knows? And last but not least, there's a couple of neighborhood meetings that have just crossed my desk, and I decided not to bother scanning them, but one of them is at Northwest 107th and Cornell. I don't know, can we see that? Yeah, it's terrible. Not, well, phooey. It's the northwest corner of 107th and Cornell, and that is for dwellings, I believe. 3-parcel partition for 2 new single-family residences and the existing dwelling, and that is going to be Thursday the 21st. I'm not going to post this stuff, but if you're interested in either of these, let me know and I'll send the information. And the other one is down at the end of Rainmont, which is way up here in the Bonnie Slope area. And it is also a partition for dwellings, 3-parcel partition. And it's the same development company. So I'll be glad to share that information if people want it. Oh, Susan, you're missing out. You just don't know what you're missing.
Down the doors, one at a time.
Now, you know, we all have our different opinions on Facebook, but it can be a convenient way to share stuff. That is it for me. If anybody else has information, news to share, topics you want to cover.
I was at the Beaverton Committee on Aging this afternoon for a little listening session by the Street Trust, and the Street Trust was asking the Aging Advisory Committee about intersections, traffic modes of transportation, with an eye to find a particular project to advocate for the community. So it was a kind of interesting thing. And in that, I heard a discussion of auxiliary commercial areas, which are akin to the middle housing densifying process that we're doing, that if we can put houses in smaller and smaller lots to get more people supported by our infrastructure, then maybe we should be sticking small commercial areas into neighborhoods also. We should allow individuals to use smaller auxiliary commercial establishments. So.
Okay, I'm promoting Jayami. All right, so next on our agenda is TriMet recently announced that they're suspending Line 50, which was the only bus service that basically served the areas primarily around Cedar Mill. There are a couple of other buses that run down Cornell or down Barnes, but Line 50 was the kind of the end result of a lot of chipping away of our services. When I first moved here, we had the Cedar Mill shuttle, and that was fantastic. It was Sassy's cab, and you called them and they'd pick you up and take you to the transit center. And then that got turned into a van, and then it became Line 50 and just progressively served fewer and fewer people, in my humble opinion. And so, of course, it failed. It didn't have much ridership. And so now well, I shouldn't tell this story. TriMet is here to tell us the story. So we will let them tell the story. And then we're going to hear from a planner at LUT about a possible remedy in part about the last mile effort. So let me introduce, let's see, are we all here? Hang on.
Virginia, can you lock my video?
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. All right.
Okay. So we have Clay Thompson who's in public outreach, and we have Luke Norman, who's the planner. And I will turn off my video.
Right,
Take it
Virginia,
away, guys.
thank you very much.
Tell us why you don't love us.
Thank you, Virginia. So let me give you a bit of background on Line 50 and what's going on with a kind of an unprecedented situation. Like many other, let me introduce myself first. Clay Thompson. I do community outreach with TriMet, and with me, of course, is Luke Norman, planner with TriMet. I'm sorry, Virginia kind of already introduced us. So what we're looking at here is kind of an unprecedented situation with hiring operators. We've kind of joined the rest of the country and other transportation providers in the difficulty in hiring staff. Of course, a lot of businesses are having that problem right now too, but we need to have operators that are qualified to sit in that seat. And so it's been very difficult for us to fill those spots as they become available through retirement and through other departures. And so we need to make sure that we have enough operators out there. And if we don't, we're missing trips. We have missed a lot of trips on other bus lines, 60 some in some instances where the trips just don't go because we don't have an operator to fill that seat. And so one of the folks that you had sent over in a response had asked about a 30-foot bus, about whether or not those would actually help the situation. 30-foot buses, we do have some in our fleet, but it doesn't actually reduce our operating costs to do that or increase ridership, because it's the same cost for their operator. Operator is the primary cost to that vehicle. So whether it's on 30, 40, or 60-foot bus, which we're actually going to be starting getting some more 60-foot buses, the cost is the same. And so unfortunately, that doesn't really do much for us where that's concerned, doesn't really help us. But for those of you who don't know the history of it, as Virginia had mentioned, it has been Line 50 for over 10 years now. Before that, it was a shuttle. And so we had that kind of contracted with a contractor to do that shuttle, but it eventually became necessary for us to make it one of our established lines that has TriMet operators operating it. We had 2 in the shuttle service before, and we have 1 now. And so, and that also pulled in, I believe, Line 60 Leahy Road when we did that. And so we've been, kind of consolidating and trying to serve the roads out there with the most amount of traffic and where the biggest need is. And that's what we're trying to do right now with operators too. We have to be able to get those trips out there in the areas where it is most needed. And so that's where the service cuts are coming from, coming in September 18th of 2022. And so what that means, of course, is line 50 is included in that, and this line would simply no longer continue after that. We would be canceling the line. And in addition to that, just so that you know, that does affect the lift boundary as well. Currently, we are accepting applications and have been for that area starting September 18th of last year. We're going to grandfather all the folks who have been riding through September 18th of this year. So all those folks will be able to continue service, but we won't be adding anybody new after that. And so just to give you a kind of a look at what we're doing to try to attack this problem of hiring, our HR department and pretty much everybody in the agency has really pulled out all the stops to try and get operators hired and try to find qualified operators. And we have a national ad campaign going, trying to hire staff. Of course, we're competing with all the other transit agencies out there, so we've got to be competitive with them. We have added a signing bonus of $7,500 for anybody who passes the interview and gets hired for the training program. And we've also increased the average wage. We include a pay increase guarantee within 18 months. We also have staff helping to interview these folks. Matter of fact, I've been participating in them myself. I had just passed a couple of people this morning onto the training program. And so basically everybody in the agency is being pulled together to participate in this unprecedented situation. I've worked here for 20 years and I've never seen anything like this. Usually any cuts or any services we have to cut in the past have had to do with recession or diesel fuel prices. And so that is really a situation that we just have never seen before, but we're attacking it as fast as we can. And we're actually starting to see a bit of a turnaround, but it's a very slow one. We have to get back up to the point where we are hiring as many as we're losing. We're just not there yet. It's probably going to take several months before we get back to that level. And
we had a question from the audience as to what happened with the drivers. Did they retire or flock to some other profession or?
Well, many things. Actually, retirement is a big part of it. We've got a lot of baby boomers going into retirement, which is a large part of our staff. And so we have to replace those, that kind of the folks at that level, but also just to other departures, people leaving and going on to another job, which has happened a lot lately. People moving on to other jobs who had a good job, but they found something else was better because of all this demand. So we're hoping that the same thing would happen for us as well, that people moving from job to job, if we raise this incentives enough and got our everything out there with going to job fairs, as many as we can. We even put it on the overheads in our buses, the digital overhead that says we're hiring. So we're really just trying to do everything we can to try and fix this problem, but it's going to take some time. And so that's why we're looking at these service cuts. And so I wanted to also let you know about something else that's happening here that will hopefully maybe address this problem. We're not sure yet. And that is we're doing a program or an incentive and an analysis, basically a comprehensive service analysis called Forward Together. And I'm going to go ahead and put that email address or that site address in chat for all of you to see. Let's see if this goes through. And so that is basically a web page that describes what we're doing to take a look at post-COVID service. How can we structure this so that it serves people the correct way, where it is most needed? And so this is, as I said, a comprehensive service analysis, not just of bus, but rail as well, because we're missing trips on rail also. And so, and bus operators usually graduate from bus to rail. Different situation now, we're allowing people to get in there faster so that we can get those seats filled. But we're really looking hard at all different angles to try and solve this problem. And Forward Together is basically actually more like 4-phase effort to do this. It's already started this last spring where we're talking to jurisdictional partners and folks that we need to find out what their plans are. Now we're moving into the next phase, which would be around about August, September timeframe, where we're going to start having public meetings and start making some proposals for what changes might occur and what things might work. And then that'll be happening August, September, and then we'll have a second phase of that outreach in January of next year. And that will probably also, both phases will include open houses, both in person and virtual. The second phase may just be virtual, but we'll have to see, kind of play it by ear. The second phase is always what we do to take the information that we've learned from the previous phases of outreach and adjust based on what we've heard. And so that second phase is where we try to finalize what we think is going to work best. Then we take it to the board in the spring and hopefully get everything or as much implemented in the following service changes after that. The next big one will be September of 2023. So I've been doing a lot of talking, and so I'm going to, Luke, I know you probably have some things you want to add to this. I know you want to talk about some of the boarding rides per hour and so forth. So I'll stop talking and give you a chance to talk.
You said something at the beginning that I think I was paying attention to something else, and maybe everybody else was too, something about the LIFT program. If you could expand on that, what that means for the ex-riders of Line 50?
You bet. And so anybody who qualifies for the LIFT paratransit program is someone who would be able to use that in the current range in which that LIFT boundary exists. And so that's based on existing fixed route service. So that boundary is around that fixed route service. And Luke, remind me, is it like a third of a mile or a quarter mile around fixed route service?
I think it's a quarter of a mile.
And so what that means is that when that line 50 goes away, then that boundary recedes and goes back to right about where the 47 and other lines south of that will be. So that changes the distance in which those folks where they live would actually be able to use LIFT service. And what we're doing to mitigate that is to, from the folks who are using the service and have been using it starting September 18th of last year, going through September 18th of this year, will all be grandfathered into this. So they will continue to be able to get LIFT service. After September 18th, we won't be taking on any new LIFT applications for that area.
But people who have just been riding Line 50 are SOL if they don't qualify for LIFT.
If they don't qualify for LIFT, they would have to use some fixed route service, yes, or other services, whatever they have in their transportation options they have in their area.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Luke.
Yeah, no worries. So I just added a little bit more information on our LIFT service in the chat if people are interested. As Clay mentioned, we are facing unique challenges, and we prefer to be at community organizations talking about increasing service, not decreasing it. However, due to the lack of operators, we've had to decrease a number of our service on routes and suspend a couple. So I just added a link to the chat that has more information on it. So it's not where we want to be, but we're trying to target routes that have the least impact on riders, especially looking at equity considerations. And based on the low ridership on Line 50, that's why we're planning to suspend the service during this fall.
Well, I can't say I blame you.
Well, one of my concerns with Line 50 was that it was only aimed at 9 to 5 commuters.
Experiment, right? It was an experimental kind of, will this get ridership? And it didn't get ridership.
Finish, please.
Sure.
And there are a lot of people in our area that don't have a fixed, that don't have necessarily a fixed schedule, but they need to get to the transit center or they need to get somewhere else in the area. And I think that's a segue to Diami, who is going to tell us about a possible new Washington County program that might step into the gap.
Yeah.
Take it away, Diami.
Sure. Thanks, Virginia. And thanks for the opportunity to present tonight. I'm Diami Valentine, I'm a senior transportation planner with Washington County. And I do have a few slides, if that would help.
Great.
Okay. Happy to share that. Just to help the discussion. So the, oh, did I lose it?
Can you click on slideshow? I hate seeing all that screen furniture.
Is that,
Thank you.
got it? Okay, there we go. So the program that Virginia was alluding to is this a program that is fairly new to Washington County and to the region, actually statewide, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. And this is, I'll provide just a brief overview of what that fund is and then describe what we are looking at for the upcoming biennium. So this is a lot of text, but the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund is born out of the House Bill 2017 Transportation Investment Package that established an employee payroll tax. And the legislature focused that portion of the program to fund public transportation statewide with the goal of, as these bullets list, maintaining and expanding existing systems, providing and expanding service to serve priority areas, being areas with a higher percentage of low-income households, reducing service fragmentation, so improving kind of coordination of service providers, and improving frequency and overall reliability of service, and then an area focusing on providing high school transportation or transportation to students. And so the county is a recipient of these funds. And so we are now in the transit business, and we have we've convened a committee. The board established this transit committee back when this was first established in 2018. And this committee provides recommendations for services for areas outside TriMet district, which is areas that's the funding that we receive directly and we allocate to improve services outside TriMet, provide improved connections into TriMet district, and then TriMet through its allocation of funds inside the TriMet district has established a program called Regional Coordination, which provides first and last leg connections within the district. And Washington County is a recipient of those funds where we provide services. And we've contracted with Ride Connection. If you're familiar with their services, they're a provider that's been around for, I should know the exact number, but it's 30 or so years. And they've been providing great service throughout the Tri-County area, primarily using federal and state resources to provide services to older adults and people with disabilities, as well as network management like driver training and other kind of rider services to improve just ridership in general. So we've contracted with them to be our service provider. They have been providing services, these community connector services in Forest Grove, Tualatin, and North Hillsborough. Other accomplishments that the committee and the board have committed to is improving coordination with adjacent counties. There's a lot of service providers that actually provide services to and through the county, including Tillamook, Columbia, and Yamhill County. Ride Connection provides door-to-door services. Previously, for older adults and people with disabilities, the funding that we receive through the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund enables that to be available to the general public. And we also fund a shuttle service between Forest Grove, North Plains, Banks, and Hillsborough. And we've also dedicated resources to better information and promotion of the services. That's been a big gap, just making people aware of the service. Stop improvements, as well as technology upgrades. So that's just a little background about what the program is and what how we've been using those funds within the county. So the way that the funding is allocated is on a biannual basis. So for the upcoming biennium, we are in the process of identifying